Mary Shelley's Frankenstein: A Warning to Modern Scientists, a formal oral presentation by Jonas Gadalis. Victor Blanchard Schaeffer once said, "Throughout history, men have tried to play God by moving rabbits, goats, sparrows, mongooses, and hundreds of other species to oceanic islands and island continents, and later have wished to God they hadn't. Many people have different opinions on the changes we make to our world. However, is it okay to play God?" Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein serves as a warning to modern scientists that the creation of life is too much for humans to handle. She presents this throughout her novel Frankenstein by demonstrating some of the unethical parts of creating new life, showing the lack of control we have, and by simply giving good advice, with the hopes of making the future generations think twice before creating life when the technology becomes available. First of all, throughout the story, Mary Shelley depicts a few ways in which creating new life could be unethical. In order to help discourage scientists from creating new life when the technology is available. An example of this is when Frankenstein creates his creature without considering how it looks and ends up creating a horrifying monster. This hideous beast is one of a kind and therefore lacks one of the main necessities for happiness, being love and affection, since everyone is afraid of him. The creature says, "I am alone and miserable. Man will not associate with me, but one as deformed and horrible as myself would not deny herself to me. My companion must be of the same species and have the same defects. This being you must create." This demonstrates how creating a new species of creature could be unethical, since you're unintentionally depriving it from the basic needs for happiness. This can help make scientists think twice about the ethics behind some of the work they might be doing. The next example is when Victor decides that his creation was a mistake and caused more negative for him than he expected, and decides that he must kill his creature. The monster says, "Listen to me, Frankenstein. You accuse me of murder, and yet you would, with a satisfied conscience, destroy your own creature? Oh, praise the eternal justice of man." Frankenstein believes that it is acceptable for him to murder the monster, since it is his creation and is causing harm to others, when it is most certainly his fault for the creature becoming corrupt, since he did not take the responsibility of giving proper care to his creature during the early stages of its life. The future generations could read this and realize how it is unethical to create life and believe that they have the right to end it afterwards. An, an example from real life depicting this is with the testing of rodents in labs. Whether an experiment will end successfully may be uncertain, but one thing is always guaranteed: death of lab rodents. The body count is unavoidable. An estimated 100 million lab mice and rats or more are killed every year in US labs for the sake of science. This demonstrates how scientists ignore ethics in the name of science, which is exactly what Mary Shelley was trying to discourage and warn about. Second of all, it is seen throughout the novel how little control Frankenstein had over his creation. Mary Shelley did did this with the intentions of scaring the future generations from trying to create life. Frankenstein's creature is sad because everything has a partner except for him. Everyone is afraid of him, and he believes that it will be impossible for him to find love. Consequently, he decides that he will find his pleasure through destruction and chaos. He says, "If I cannot inspire love, I will cause fear." This demonstrates how little amount of control Frankenstein has over his creature, since he cannot stop him from this deciding this, and is unable to reason with his creature. This could scare anyone potentially trying to create life, since they would realize how little amount of control they could have if things go incorrectly. A second example is when Frankenstein's monster realizes that he has nothing to live for and nothing to lose. Therefore, he is not afraid, which makes him uncontrollable. The creature says, "Beware, for I am fearless and therefore powerful." Shelley 206. Frankenstein is unable to control his creature, since his creature has no fear. This might spook away anyone trying to create new life, since they would consider that they might not have control if their creature develops no fear. An example of lack of control from the real world is that scientists from Canada have found that transgenic Atlantic salmon can crossbreed with closely related species, the brown trout, the fish, which have been engineered with extra genes to make them grow more quickly, pass on this trait to the hybrid offspring. This demonstrates the lack of control that we have over our creation, since if one genetically modified fish finds itself in the ocean, it could crossbreed and contaminate many and eventually all natural fish, which could possibly lead to a major problem in the ecosystem. This is precisely what Shelley is warning throughout her novel, since the creation and control of life is a task that is too much for a human to handle. Third of all, Mary Shelley wrote some good advice after demonstrating how poor creating life turned out for the people around, by simply making her opinion on the subject very clear, with the hopes of encouraging people of the future not to mess around with the creation of life. The first example of this is how Victor is interested about how many things are we upon the brink of becoming acquainted if cowardice or carelessness did not restrain our inquiries. This is an example of physical characteristic of preservation, because people could discover new, more dangerous things that could potentially lead to a less good future. Shelley demonstrates this, how some new things that we're on the edge of discovering could in fact be negative, and that people should think twice before trying to discover them. This is seen in the novel through the creation of life, and Mary Shelley is trying to discourage people from doing it in the future when the ability becomes available. The second example is near the end of the story, when Victor Frankenstein realizes that he made a big mistake to pursue his interest of science and the creation of life. He says, "Seek happiness in tranquility and avoid ambition, even if it be only the apparently innocent one of distinguishing yourself in science and discoveries." He ruined his life by deciding to pursue his curiosity of science, which ended up taking away everything else that he loved and making his life unbearable. Mary Shelley depicts how creating new life was a mistake, and then later Victor gives advice not to redo his mistakes. This might detour people looking into creating new life, since they can see a hypothetical negative result from it and read the advice to not recreate it. According to a study conducted at Bristol University and led by the faculty's Dr. Paul Howard Jones and Dr. Raphael Bogax, that demonstrates how effective seeing other people's failures are for learning. When their opponents messed up, players experienced responses in both the reward and learning signals in their brain, suggesting that we take notice of our competitors' failures and also learn from the actions that led to them, to avoid making similar mistakes in the future. Advice is typically given when someone makes a mistake. Therefore, the demonstration of negative reaction from a mistake, and advice to prevent it could be enough to detour someone from trying it for themselves. Mary Shelley uses this technique as a warning with the hopes of encouraging scientists of the future not play God. In conclusion, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein could be interpreted as a warning towards modern-day scientists trying to create life. It is seen by displaying some of the unethical parts of creating new life, exhibiting the lack of control we have, and by simply giving good advice. Is it okay to play God?